Avalon Cablevision proudly presents for its fourth consecutive season, Sports Personalities. And now here's your host, Ted Patey.
Well, one of the most brilliant careers in the history of sport in Newfoundland belongs to our guest tonight on Sports Personalities. He started out in 1955, ending his retirement in 77. He competed in walking, rowing, and hockey, and he has amassed somewhere in the vicinity of 700 awards. He was also named St. John's Athlete of the Year in 1967 after being nominated previously 4 times. Please welcome tonight my guest on Sports Personalities, King of the Road, walker Gord Follett. And Gord, welcome to Sports Personalities.
Thank you, Dave.
Gord, I just mentioned that you have amassed in the vicinity of 700 awards. First of all, where do you store them at?
Well, just about all of them are down in my basin, on the walls, bedrooms, kitchen, living room, you know.
All over the place, say.
All over the place.
Okay, Gord, we're talking about your sports in walking, rowing, and hockey. Let's just go back to your early days and tell us how you got interested in walking.
Well, really, you know, like when I was going to school at Curtis Academy, road races, I think, used to start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and by the time we be getting out of school, Ferd Hayward and Burma and them be coming across the Marching Road, and I used to get on the sidewalk and just walk, you know, see how far I could go and stay with them, and that sort of, you know, got me interested in race walking.
Now, George Parsons was probably your biggest rival in the early days. How much of an influence did he have on your career?
Well, I have to give all the credit to George for getting me started. He wanted to, you know, he said, give race walking a try, you know, and I said, all right. So we trained, you know, night after night, and kept a record of each night we went out. And but George Parsons was a great walker.
I understand you trained in the area of the White Hills.
White
Quite a
Hills.
familiar face down that area with the red and white tracksuit on all the time.
That's right. You know, White Hills and Portugal Cove. We used to leave probably the Feeling Gardens or King George V track and go down along the White Hills, down around Luggy Bay, Portugal Cove, and back to roughly, 10, 12 miles practice every night, if not every night, every second night.
And of course, you won your first 10-mile race in 1962, and you won it every year after that until you retired in 77. Any one 10-mile race that stands out in your mind?
Yes, I believe the best time I ever had, I think, was 42 seconds behind George Parsons' record. George has the record 1:15:34, and I was still doctored the night before. My legs were swollen. I had the flu, and I wasn't going to go in it, so I just went in it, and that happened to be, the fastest time I ever did 10-mile race walking.
Many competitors in those days in the 10-mile race, Gord?
On average, 10, 12. Very seldom you'd get more than 15.
And I understand there was quite a lot of fan support lining both sides of the streets.
There was. Some stations used to broadcast, and that used to bring the people out coming across the Marching Road, both sides, right there, right from, say, Brookfield ice cream down to the finish line, down by the Newfoundland Hotel. Just streams and streams of people alongside the road cheering you on.
Now, you used to make an annual trip to the Grand Falls for the CKCM 10-kilometer race, and I understand you won that, I think, 12 years in a row.
Yes, well, basically, like I used to go out with 2 or 3 of the brothers, and we used to leave 12 o'clock in the night, just drive, get there, take our time, get there 7 o'clock in the morning, stay in the car or the truck, whatever, until 9 o'clock race, and go in the race, and right after the race, shower, and leave, come home.
I can see now, Gord, how all those awards are starting to pile up, because right here now, you also set a record for 19 straight wins in the 20-mile walk.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're talking about a 10-mile walk, a 20-mile walk. What did you prefer, the shorter or the longer walks?
I prefer the longer. With the shorter, it's much harder. Like for instance, the 20-mile, you can get out and pace yourself. But in 10 mile, it's more or less a sprint. You got to, be at top speed at all times. But with a 20 mile, you go out and get in a pace and hold it, and increase or decrease whenever you want to.
Now, what about like when you enter a 20-mile race? How much training, say, would you prepare for before entering the race?
Well, if we were having a race at 20 miles, say, the end of a month, and this day was the first of the month, I'd probably, do, on a weekend, do a 15 mile, in between during the weekdays, I'd probably do 6 and 7 miles, basically, all on the style.
Just tell us about some of the records that you've set, because apparently you hold a record for just about every walking distance race on the road.
Well, I think the shortest one is 1,500 meters. Then it's 1 mile up to 31 mile, which is a 50 kilometer. And George Parsons do hold the only one I don't think I could beat was George Parsons. I don't know why, but the 10 mile was the hardest race for me.
Gord, during your walking career, you ran and walked an average of at least 40 miles a week for 11 months of the year, breaking only in December. Now, that training program would see you doing about 2,000 practice miles a year and approximately 50,000 miles during your career since 1955. Now, that's quite a lot of beat.
Well, I mean, if you want to be, in half-decent condition, you have to work out just about every day.
Mm-hmm. Now, another runner, too, who was up and coming, Don Coker. And I think that you and Don tried out to see what the competition on the mainland was like. And a big fundraising effort took place in order to send your two boys up to the mainland. Just tell us about that.
Well, I think they sent Don up for a 15-mile run, and I was going up for a 10-mile walk. And the way the competition was, with the race walkers on the mainland being so keen, they figured I'll probably end up in the top 6, and Dan probably end up in the top 3. So as it turned out, I won the 10 mile. I beat Karen Brashen's, I think, by 4 seconds, and I think Dan Coker placed 8 in the race.
Mm-hmm. And of course, on your return home, everybody was quite pleased with your performance, and the new Embassy Club, which I had just had open then, Gord, they threw a big informal dinner for you and Don. All the media and press were all there present. It was quite an honor for you guys.
Oh, it definitely was. Really enjoyed.
Big crowd on hand that night too, Gord.
It was, yeah.
Now, another great name in walking during your career, Carl McNiven. He had a tryout for Canada's senior track team in the Empire Games. You and Carl McNiven, just tell us about the tryout itself.
Well, it was a 20-mile walk, and we left on a Friday. I think the race was Saturday, and it was held at York University campus. I think it was something like 28 walkers in it. I think the winning time was 2:40 around there, 2 hours 40 minutes. I placed 4th in it, and I think Carl McNiven placed 8 in it. But the time you had to do it under 2:45 to be eligible or qualify for the British Empire Games.
Mm-hmm. Now, a race that I want to talk about during your career, of course, was in 1968. You were going for a record. You were passing in front of Fort Motel, and Lord and behold, you got struck by a car. Tell us what happened.
Well, it was a rainy day, raining hard, and police patrol was ahead of me. George Franklin, probably you know George. He was there, CMP officer in front of me, and I didn't know nothing, and I felt, the car just hit me right in the small part of the back and just drove me in the air. And it's a good thing that the road was wet that day, because, I had my leg tore up, arm tore up, and, I wasn't hurt. I don't think, at the time I figured it was nothing broke, so I keep on trying. And I finished the race, but when I finished the race, I was really, stiff. I couldn't bend or anything, so they took me down to the hospital, and I was laid up, I think it was about 2 weeks, just, slouch around the house.
And of course, Gord, in 1967, after being nominated 4 previous times for St. John's Athlete of the Year, which is a dream every athlete like to win, you were named St. John's Athlete of the Year, and that was quite an honor for you in itself.
Oh, I think it was something like 4,100 people at the stadium. They presented that center ice, and I think Gander was playing St. John's, and when they announced my name, indeed it was a real thrill for me to go out and accept that award.
And talking about honors, you also received the Merit of Award Trophy from the Amateur Athletic Union of Canada, and that was for, of course, of your long and valued service and top-level competition, which is another quite an honor.
Yes, I think their annual meeting was held at Holiday Inn, and some big names, Bill Crothers, Nancy Green, they received the award, I think Merit Award for their province. And, I went to that meeting, I had no idea what was going on, and when they announced that, I won this Merit Award, that was really an honor too.
And Gord, after the car accident, when you got hit, you retired after that, but I understand it's only for a short while.
Yes, I think that was the last race of the year. Usually the 31 mile was the last race of the year, and I was so, fed up, I suppose, but when the season rolled around again, I just had to go out. It's just in my blood to go out and start walking again.
What would you say had to be one of your biggest disappointments?
In race walking? Not breaking the 10-mile race, the record for the 10 mile. I was close to it, but I never did beat it. That's probably the biggest disappointment for me.
Okay, let's just talk about the Follett family. As a family in walking, I understand that you had some more brothers and sons who were also out in the walking.
Yeah, well, I can remember one race. There was Brother Forrest, Brother Jeff, Brother Walter, and Gordon Jr. and his brother Jeff. And, that, I think, was seven took part in that race, and we had, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, right down the line.
And, of course, back then, too, Gord, there was a lot of other families also into race walking.
Yes, Carl McNiven and his father, Ron West, Paul West, great athletes. Ron is the manager up the Twin Rings now. They were great athletes in their day.
And one thing I had to mention here, going through your scrapbook, I didn't realize that Ron West was into race walking.
Well, yes, Ron indeed was a good race walker. And he tried for 5-6 years, and then just didn't bother.
Well, Gord, before we really get into the Follett family in racing, just tell me about probably some of the hardest races that you were involved in.
Well, I'd say one of the hardest races was in Grand Falls with Carl McNiven. He was a great little walker, and step for step from first step to the last step. And I beat him by, I think, it was 9/10 of a second. And it's a real hard race. It was a real warm day.
One of the McNiven boys who was really up there in racing, I think, just passed away a few years ago, didn't he?
Carl McNiven, yes. I think he was only 37 years of age when he passed away. A great walker.
Well, Gordon, I want to thank you for joining me this week on Sports Personalities, and our time is up now, but I'd like you to come back next week, and we'll do part 2 and talk about the Follett family itself and racing. Will you be able to join me next week?
Pleasure, sir.
Okay, part 1 of the Gord Follett series this week. Next week, we'll air part 2. We'll see you then. That's it for Sports Personalities this week. See you next week. Good night.
Avalon Cablevision proudly presents for its 4th consecutive season, Sports Personalities. And now here's your host, Ted Patey.
Well, welcome back for part 2 of the Gord Follett story, the King of the Road. a walker who has amassed approximately 700 awards and victories, and he's just got them stored all over the place. We looked at the career of Gord last week during his walking days. Now we're going to get into the Follett family, because the whole family was involved in walking. And Gordon, welcome back for part 2 of the series, and thanks for joining me again this week.
You did.
Now, Gordon, as I just said, we talked about your walking career last week now, but there was also the whole Follett family was practically into walking. Just tell us about, again, the other members, when they got started, and why and how.
All right, well, the youngest brother, Walter, I believe I got him started at 12 or 13 years of age. Like, in them days, you had to have 3 walkers to, in order to put off a race. If you didn't have 3, it wouldn't be no race. So I got Walter started, 13-year-old, I think it was, and I kept after him. He didn't train that much, but he enjoyed it any time it was a race. Walter would toe the line with the rest of the brothers. Then there's Jeff, who I figures would have been the top, walker if he had to train in Newfoundland. He was a real race walker. Like, I go into him, I said, we got a race tomorrow. It's all right. So he come out without training, win a race, and probably end up in the top 3 race walkers. And Forrest probably was the more successful of the 2 brothers. Forrest got quite enough number of trophies, and usually Forrest was always in the top 3. He even tried running, but he did enjoy race walking. And matter of fact, I think he ended up as coach of national coaches, class of national coach in Newfoundland.
And of course, Gordy Jr. I just want to show a picture here, and this is a picture of an 8-year-old kid, and you sports fans out there may not recognize him now, but he is Gordy Follett, the sports editor of the Sunday Express, and this is the way he looked when he was 18 years old, just 8 years old. Just look at the bush of curly hair on him there, something else. So that's Gord Follett, sports editor of the Sunday Express. And of course, Gord, he had quite a walking career too. He got started at the early age, I think, of 7.
7, yeah. Well, I worked knock off 6 o'clock, and I trained in the winter months at CLB Armory. And we lived down on Queen's Road, and about 5:45, Gordy used to leave to come up with the track shoes and himself, come up CLB, we'd go in CLB, and when I was working out, he's more or less worked out too. So he kept at it, he was interested, and I think that year, or the following year, there was a 3-mile walk they had down on King George 5th track, and he's pretty good walker. So I just asked him, would he mind going in? He said no, and there was 7, 8, 9 walkers in it, and he really walked. He wasn't that far behind, 2nd place, and that was his first taste of race walking.
Not bad. At 8 years old, come in 3rd in a competition like that.
That's true.
And we were just down to the Athlete of the Month banquet there the other day, and I was talking to Gordy, and the boys more or less were saying, we can just see Gordy now, back then, 8 or 10 years old, swinging the hips going down the sidewalk,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was a great little walker, he took it, the first day he started race walking, and he still got interest in it.
Was he hard to train, Gordy?
No, easy. Very easy. Matter of fact, all the brothers were easy. You ask them to do something, they'll go out and do exactly what you ask them to do.
Now, what was it like all the time in all those races, just seeing all the Follets, the same face after face in all the races?
Oh, well, with Forrest used to be the guy, he used to be smart, but then it didn't pay off that much. He used to take, the first race, Forrest used to take off. He figures, if he get the lead, if it's a 31-mile walk, he'll go out and, probably lead for the first 8, 10 miles, and all of a sudden he'll come back to meet you. In the game of race walking, you have to know how to pace train. And with Gordy got in there. Gordy could pace train, and especially leading up to the Canada Games, which he won a bronze medal.
That was my next question on Gordy. He must have trained good, and you had to train him good, because in '77 in the Summer Games, Gordy did compete for our province in Newfoundland and did win the bronze medal, which was quite an honor for us and for Newfoundland.
Oh, yes, he trained really hard, day after day, night after night. Easy trainer. He go out and each, I think something like 58 minutes for the 10K he started off, and then he brought it down to 54, something like that, which every time he went in he used to break the junior record.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand also, talking about the '77 Summer Games, you were one of the walking judges. How did that come about?
Well, actually, they were allowed to race, judge from Newfoundland, and I think Gordy's uncle was the other judge. I think Forrest and I had a level 3 judge. You had to have a level 3 in order to judge, and there's sort of a stink first to, they don't see why Forrest should be a judge, but actually there was about 7 judges there, on each corner, and it was a thrill there to see him go around, and his uncle on one corner and his father on the other.
I understand you had the honor of presenting the medals to the winners, of which Gordy won the bronze.
I did, and there was two guys from Quebec placed first and second, and Gordon come third.
Tell me how you felt when you were presenting the medal to Gordy Jr.
Oh, I felt great. It was a real thrill to just go up and shake the hand, knowing that your son is on the board there to receive an award.
As being a brilliant walker in the past yourself, and in the walkers in the '77 Summer Games, was the competition really good, Gord?
In '77 Games, it was. And today now, the race walking is a different style. You got to be more alert. The judges 10 years ago, you used to get 3 warnings before you'd be thrown out of a race. But now, you probably get a caution, or you don't even have to get a caution. You can be disqualified, with just a red flag.
Now let's talk about the decline in race walking. Why did it happen?
Boy, that's a hard question. But I left the scene of track and field. I wasn't that much interested in after, like Gordy gave it up after the '77 Games, and the brothers, they didn't see much interest in, so I just come out scene, and Forrest tried to get it going again in the past few years, but right now I don't think it's last year I don't think they had one walking race in Newfoundland.
Is walking still a top sport in other parts of Canada, do you know?
In Ontario and Montreal it definitely is, but in the Maritime province I don't think there's any race walking.
Okay, now besides race walking, you were a pretty versatile athlete, and you were a good rower down on the pond during the regatta days, and also a coxswain. And how many years did you compete down there on the pond?
Well, I was down from 1962 to about 2 years ago when we had the squabble there. I just walked away from it. But as an oarsman, I was stroke oar. Winning 6 probably mercantile races in a row, club race. We ended up championship race 2 or 3 times. Most exciting race was a 1 championship race. It was dark when I went. They put off it, and they asked the people along the shore to put the lights on out the cars, and it's really difficult to see the oars going in the water. And William Summers Jr. and my crew were neck and neck right up to about a half minute to go. And unfortunately, one of the oarsmen in our boat lost his oar, but we still held our own. And I still think, we won that race. But they said they won it by a foot, and it was dark that night.
Gordon, it must take a lot of training to be an oarsman.
It do, boy, and it's the hardest 10 minutes you want to row, work in your life. You're steady. You got to train and land, plus you got to spend lots of time in the boat.
What would you say was your biggest highlight during your rowing days as a rower and a coxswain?
Well, as a coxswain, about 3 years ago, I had a ladies' crew, and Brother Forrest had 2 ladies' crew. The crew I had didn't make the championship race, and Forrest had 2 teams that did make. So naturally, it calls for you go with your crew with the fastest time. So he asked me would I take St. Hildary's, and I said no problem. So we went in championship race, and I beat him, I think, by a second in the championship race. So that was a thrill, beating after not taking that crew.
After being a rower and coxswain on the pond for a number of years, since the outer cold crew first established the record of 9:13, do you think the pond has lengthened out by the water washing on the shores and so forth? Erosion?
I don't think it's lengthened out. I think, the way everything is doctored up, oarlocks, shims, different type of oars, wax in the boat, tillers, everything like that made an improvement in the rowing.
Now, you say you walked away from the rowing and so forth 2 years ago after a squabble. Tell us.
Well, basically, it concerns, anyone could go out and steer a crew. We didn't agree. We had a program, the Coxswain Association had a program. Your first year, if you want to steer, your class as a trainee for 1 year, and probably I'll sponsor you. And after 1 year, your second year, you probably take a ladies' crew, that's half the pond. And then the third year, you'd be a qualified coxswain. And they didn't want that. They said, you get 40 spins in, and you're qualified.
So you walked away from it, and the issue was settled. I don't know if it was I guess it was for the better, but have you any intentions of going back on the pond again?
No, I don't think so. No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just get away from rowing now, and you're also heavily involved in hockey, I guess as a player and as a coach, and probably president of one of the top-notch leagues that was in the city for probably years, and was next to senior hockey in Newfoundland, and we're talking about the Inner City Hockey League.
Well, I was involved with the Intercity Hockey League for roughly 20 years, 5 years as a player, and I think it was 10 years as president of the league. And basically, majority of them were senior players, real good players. And 1 year we entered, we picked an all-star team and went in the All-Newfoundland, I think it was Intermediate A, against Gander. We went out to Gander for the first 2 games, winning 1 and losing 1. Then we come in here, and it had to be decided on overtime and total goals, and the whole 3 games we played, Gander won 2-1 total goals.
Mm-hmm. So what's Gord Follett doing in sport today?
Well, I still coach ladies ball hockey, and past summer I took up playing softball, recreation level, and I really enjoyed softball. I coach ladies ball hockey. I coach a recreation hockey team Sunday nights now at Twin Rinks, and still, go out for my half-hour walk or jog every night or every morning.
And Gordy, Freddie Jackson once wrote a column that titled you the unsung hero as an organizer and a coach, and that's very true. The past 2 weeks on Sports Personalities, we have been talking to the king of the road, Gord Follett. That's it for this week. See you next week. Good night. Thanks.